Under a sun that knew no mercy, Sua's feet pressed into the cracked earth like a prayer unanswered. Dust clung to her eyelashes, her lips split with thirst, but she did not stop. Bound tightly across her back was her sister's body, swaddled in white cloth now stained ochre by dust and time. Amma had died 2 days before, a quiet death, the kind where breath slips out unnoticed like it was tired of being caught. Sua had held her afterward, rocking her as if motion could stir life again. But life had gone where Sua could not follow. The elders of the village, gaunt and sharp-eyed, had spoken in dry voices. It was a bad death, they said. No illness, no warning, no dreaming. And so, she could not be buried in the earth like the rest. The spirits, they claimed, would not accept her. Amma had to be carried to the high cliffs, where wind and spirit fire would burn the wrongness from her bones. It was an old belief, a cruel one, but Sua had no parents to protest. No one to say no. Just hands that wrapped her sister gently, a back that bent under her weight, and eyes that never wept in front of the others. They gave her a water skin, half full. They gave her dried root bread, hard as stone. And they gave her no company. This journey is yours, the old women said. The burden of blood falls to blood. They meant well maybe. Or maybe they were afraid. In that place, grief was a thing people feared could spread. The path to the cliffs was long and twisting, and the land knew only sun and silence. Birds didn't cry. Trees didn't sway. Even the wind felt like it was holding its breath. Sua walked with the body swaying behind her, and every step felt like it stretched the skin off her bones. Amma had once been all curls and giggles, chasing lizards with open palms, singing songs her mother used to hum. Now she was still and silent, a strange heaviness pressing into Sua's spine. But it was not just weight. It was presence, something too large to name. On the second day the wind shifted. It wasn't loud, not at first. Just a rustle like breath through dead leaves. Then a sigh. Not her own. Sua stopped walking. The silence returned. She glanced over her shoulder, but the bundle was unmoving. Still tightly bound. Still small. She kept walking. By the fourth hill, her feet were blistered and her mouth had turned to paste. She drank only enough to wet her tongue. Every drop felt like a betrayal. Her sister had no thirst left, but Sua still lived. That night, she lay beneath the open sky, stars sharp like bone fragments above her. She didn't dream. But she heard something. The cloth shifted. She didn't scream. Sua was too far beyond fear for that. She simply turned and placed her palm gently on the bundle. It was warm. Not with life, not heartbeat, not breath, but warm like a stone that had known the sun all day. Beneath the cloth she swore she felt fingers twitch. But she did not open it. No looking back, the elders had said. No unwrapping. Or you'll carry her forever. She believed them. The journey stretched. Her legs shook. Her lips cracked. And still the body stayed on her back. One night she awoke to whispering, not words but a hum. Her sister used to hum when she was frightened. It was a soft, secret thing. And now it came from behind her, low and sad and steady. Sua began to hum with it. Not in fear, but in memory. By the 7th day her knees buckled on the trail. She fell hard, her arms scraped open, and for a moment she couldn't move. She lay curled on the earth, face to stone, and cried without sound. The weight on her back didn't shift. But the hum returned louder now. Around her, the air felt heavy, thick, as if something old had woken. When she stood again she was not alone. She could not see them but she felt them, the watchers. Not ghosts. Not exactly. Shapes in the heat haze, moving just at the edge of her vision. She heard footsteps behind her, matching her own. Sometimes ahead. Always just out of reach. By the time the cliffs came into view, Sua no longer questioned. The rocks rose like teeth from the land, jagged and white. The place of bad deaths, the elders had called it. The cleansing place. But to Sua, it looked like a place where the world forgot to be kind. At the edge of the cliff, she lowered the bundle from her back. Her arms trembled. Her knees bled. She laid Amma gently on the rock, unwrapped just enough to see her face. It was the same, peaceful, closed-lidded, but the color had changed. No longer gray. Not quite alive but not quite gone. Sua spoke softly. I brought you. The air stirred. Then came the voices. Low, layered like water moving through gravel. Not human. Not unkind. You carried her, they said. You bore the weight. She may cross now. The rock beneath Amma shimmered faintly. Light, pale and golden, began to rise from the stone like smoke. It wrapped around the body, lifting gently, not away but into something. Sua couldn't describe it. She only knew that when the light faded, the bundle was empty. Her back for the first time in days felt light. She didn't cry. She stood, alone, and turned to walk home. Behind her, the cliff sighed, a sound like something being laid to rest. And somewhere in the wind, a child's voice hummed. This time Sua hummed too. The ash path was not named for beauty. It earned its name from the wind-blown dust that clung to everything, white-gray, thick as mourning cloth, settling into the pores of the land. It stretched between the known villages and the cliff lands, and no one walked it unless they were carrying death. Sua had been told stories, of course, fragments of tales whispered under breath by midwives and crones, tales that warned children to never stray too far, to never pick up bones they found on the road, and to never speak to voices that came from behind. But no story prepared her for how cold the world felt once she stepped onto that path. It was the 4th day of her journey. Her sister's bundle, swaddled and bound, had grown heavier than it had any right to be. Sua had stopped trying to explain it to herself. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe grief had weight. Or maybe, she did not say it aloud, not even in her thoughts, maybe the weight came from something else inside the cloth. The wind howled constantly, never breaking. It pulled at her braids, whispered through her ears like a warning wrapped in breath. Trees here had no leaves. The bark was brittle and scorched. The ground crunched underfoot with a texture that was neither dirt nor sand. She thought again. Not from a fire. From something older. In the distance she saw a small village, one of those nameless, forgotten places whose roofs bowed with age and whose windows stared like sunken eyes. She approached slowly, cautious but drawn. Her water skin was nearly empty. Her lips had cracked open. The food was gone. No one greeted her when she arrived. Doors clicked shut. Curtains dropped. Dogs slunk away with tails between legs. Only one figure waited, a bent old woman with clouded eyes, sitting in the center of the road like she had been waiting all day. Sua paused a few steps from her. The woman's hair was like sea thread, floating slightly even though there was no breeze. Her skin was loose but her eyes, when they looked up, were piercing. "She stirs," the old woman said, and her voice was the texture of rust. Sua froze. "What?" "She stirs," the woman repeated, pointing a gnarled finger at the bundle on Sua's back. "If she stirs, don't let her speak." Sua's throat closed. "She is your blood, yes," the old woman went on, now whispering like someone speaking over the shoulder of a ghost. "But she's also something's door. And if she opens it, you will not come back down the mountain." Sua stepped back. The old woman didn't follow. She only leaned her head to one side, listening. "She breathes through your ears now," she said softly. "You'll know when she wants to talk." Then she turned her face away and the wind swallowed her. Sua left the village quickly. She didn't run, but her steps quickened. The sky had begun to dim, the strange twilight before real darkness, where shadows grow too fast. She didn't look at the bundle. She didn't dare. That night she didn't light a fire. She wrapped herself in her shawl, lay with her back to a stone outcropping, and tried to keep her breath shallow. Every creak of the trees, every murmur of wind became a possible voice. But nothing happened, until the middle of the night, when she awoke with the weight of breath behind her ear. Not wind. Breath. Hot. Soft. Familiar. Sua didn't move. "Sua?" The voice was tiny, childlike, but not quite Alma's. It had too much air in it, as though it were shaped by lungs not used to breathing. "Sua, I'm cold." She clenched her jaw. Her hands dug into the earth. She remembered the old woman's words. Don't let her speak. "I can't feel my fingers," the voice whispered again. "Can you hold my hand?" Sua shut her eyes. "Are you angry with me?" Silence. "I didn't mean to go." Sua turned her head, just slightly, just enough to glimpse the edge of the bundle in the starlight. It didn't move. No rise. No fall. No motion. But the voice continued. "You sang to me," it whispered, "before I closed my eyes. Will you sing again?" A breeze lifted Sua's braids. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She remembered the tune, the lullaby their mother used to hum. A soft river song. Alma had loved it. Don't let her speak. But was it still speaking if Sua was the one who sang? Her lips parted. Before she could hum a note, the bundle twitched. Just once. Enough to freeze the blood in her spine. The voice grew thinner, wheezing now. "Don't leave me at the cliff." Sua sat up, suddenly alert. "You're not her," she said aloud for the first time, her voice cracking like dry leaves. "You're not Amma." The bundle was silent. No wind. No voice. But behind her the trees creaked. Not with breeze, but like something brushing against them. The hush of cloth on bark. The scrape of nails. The fire in her belly returned even without warmth. It was fear, yes, but also will. Sua stood, her knees weak, and retied the bundle more tightly against her back. "You're mine to carry," she whispered. "But you're not mine to listen to." The silence behind her didn't agree. In the distance, the cliffs loomed larger, their jagged teeth catching the starlight. The ash path was thinning, becoming stone. The journey was almost done. Sua walked. And though nothing touched her, she swore she felt her sister's mouth moving against her shoulder, smiling. On the third morning, Sua woke with the taste of iron in her mouth and her heart thudding like a drum behind her ribs. The air had turned humid, thick with a strange warmth that didn't belong in the cold, brittle lands near the cliffs. The bundle strapped to her back felt heavier than ever, the cloth warmer, almost damp. A dull ache crept into her spine where the body had rested against her all night. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes with shaking fingers. The fire had long gone cold, if it had ever truly caught in this place. The sun was barely beginning to rise, its light filtered through layers of cloud and ash. It looked more like dusk than dawn. Sua stretched her shoulders and winced. Something pinched. She tugged at the edge of her dress, pulling down the fabric from her left shoulder. Bruises. Small, round, and set in the shape of fingers. Too small to be her own. She froze. For a moment, the world stilled. Even the wind held its breath. Sua turned her head slowly, eyes landing on the bundle beside her. Amma's body wrapped in linen, bound with a mother's shawl. The cloth was darker now, as if soaked through in parts. It hadn't rained. She hadn't crossed a stream. She touched it gently with the back of her hand. Damp. Warm. Not with rot. But like something sweating. She shouldn't. But she had to know. With trembling hands she loosened the upper folds of the cloth. Carefully, reverently, she peeled the fabric back from Amma's face, layer by layer. It had been 3 days. She expected signs of decay. Of stillness. But what she saw made her breath lock in her chest. Amma's face was unchanged. Soft. Pale. Lips slightly parted as if caught mid-word or breath. Her eyes were shut, lashes delicate as they had always been. The only thing different, impossibly, terribly different, was her mouth. It was open. Just barely. Just enough to show the edge of teeth. The way it used to when Amma gasped from laughter or surprise. Not slack in death, not tensed in agony. Gasping. Sua dropped the cloth and scrambled backward, her legs catching on roots and stone. Her heart stammered wildly. Her hands flew to her own mouth to stop the cry that almost escaped. No. She had imagined it. She must have. She crept closer again. Forced her breath to slow. Forced her fingers to retie the linen, firm and precise. It was only the way the cloth had settled. Amma had died in her sleep. There had been no movement, no pulse. She was sure. But the bruises on her shoulders ached like memory. The rest of that day, Sua walked with the bundle tied close and high, afraid to let it shift against her back. The ash path narrowed. Rocks jutted up like ribs from the earth. The horizon grew sharper, steeper as the cliffs neared. Sometimes she thought she heard something, not words, not breath, but a kind of tug in the silence behind her ear. Like a child trying to speak through a wall of water. She didn't look back. By midday the clouds began to crawl lower, coating the sun in layers of gray. She passed another abandoned village, this one smaller than the last. A single house remained intact. She paused at its edge, not planning to stop, but a sound made her glance through the broken window. A cradle rocked gently inside. No wind. Sua tightened the knot on her bundle and kept moving. That night she made camp by a stone shaped like a bowl. The wind had carved it that way, the elders once said, to hold the dreams of the dead. She didn't sleep. She sat beside the stone, eyes wide, watching the cloth that held her sister. No movement. But she didn't dare rest. She was afraid of what might press into her shoulders again. Afraid of what her dreams might show. By the 4th hour of darkness, her eyelids drooped. Just for a moment. She jerked awake when something touched her cheek. No one was there. But when she looked down at her dress, a new bruise bloomed across her collarbone. 2 small finger-shaped prints. Like a child holding on too tightly. She stood in one quick, breathless motion, nearly toppling over. "I carried you," she whispered to the bundle. "I have done everything right. Do not follow me now." But something in the cloth shifted. Not a twitch. Not a trick of the eye. A shift. Like something inside adjusting to its weight. Sua backed away. And behind her, the stone bowl made a sound. A soft knock. She did not check it. She sat by the fireless camp, holding her knees to her chest, eyes never leaving the bundle. By morning her voice was gone from disuse and fear. And when she tried to walk again the path seemed longer, the cliffs more distant, as if the journey had stretched while she slept, or as if the one she carried had turned back, and was pulling her with it. The cursed forest had no gate, no sign to mark its threshold. It began with a sudden quiet, birds stopping mid-call, the wind losing its song. One moment Sua was still walking the ash path beneath a sky the color of smoke. The next she stepped beneath a canopy so thick and gnarled it swallowed the light. The trees curved inward, hunched as though in mourning, their twisted limbs bowed not in welcome but in sorrow. They dripped with long-veined moss like weeping veils. Roots coiled across the path like knotted hands reaching up to trip the unwelcome. No leaves fell here. No breeze dared stir them. Sua hesitated at the edge. She glanced back at the open wasteland she'd crossed, dry, brittle, endless, and forward to the dark throat of trees where even time seemed uncertain. She felt her sister's weight on her back. Heavy. Warmer than before. She entered. Each step she took was muffled by layers of damp earth and fallen decay. The air was thicker here, wet and sweet like overripe fruit left too long. Shadows moved ahead of her, slinking from trunk to trunk, but when she blinked they were still. Only trees. Only the forest. Only her. But the humming began around dusk. It was faint at first, so faint she mistook it for the wind finally remembering its voice. A low hum. Rhythmic. Familiar. A child's tune halting and soft. Her mother's lullaby. Sua stopped mid-step, a root lodged under her sandal. Her mouth went dry. She couldn't swallow. She turned her head slightly, listening. The hum continued, coming from the bundle on her back. No. She pressed her hands to her ears and kept walking, faster now, stumbling but refusing to fall. The trees grew thicker, their bark grooved like open mouths, their branches hanging lower and lower as if eavesdropping on every breath she took. Some trunks bore marks, long vertical scratches too deep for animals. Or too deliberate. That night she didn't dare light a fire. She sat with her knees hugged to her chest and placed the bundle beside her on a blanket of moss. The cloth had darkened to a reddish-brown hue, no longer stiff with death but soft and pliant. She refused to touch it again. Not after what she'd seen on the third day. The humming returned around midnight. Clearer now. It wasn't just her mother's lullaby anymore. It was Amma's voice. Sua remembered it perfectly, high and sweet, a little off-key, always skipping the last note of each line. The exact way she was hearing it now. She clenched her fists. Tears burned in her eyes but wouldn't fall. "You are dead," she whispered, not to the body but to herself. "You were cold. I held you. You were cold." The trees groaned in response. Low and deep, like a choir of old women crying with their mouths closed. Then one tree bent lower than the rest, its branches cracking as it curved toward her. A single dry leaf fell onto the bundle, landing near where a chest might rise and fall. It didn't rise. But the cloth twitched. Sua stood, every hair on her arms rising. The bundle remained still now. Silent. Had she imagined it? She stepped back. Behind her, a branch creaked, and she swore she heard words tangled in the rustling leaves. "She's not sleeping." "No," Sua said aloud. "She can't be." A breeze brushed past her, cool against her face. For a moment she allowed herself to believe it was just wind. Just the forest playing tricks. Until she realized it was humming again. But not from the bundle. From the trees. Dozens of trees now, humming her mother's lullaby, all in Amma's soft, broken voice. And in that moment, Sua could almost hear the shape of a question wrapped in the melody, not spoken, not clear, but pressing against her bones like a breath held too long. "Why did you let me go?" She collapsed to her knees. "I didn't let you go," she whispered. "I carried you." The trees groaned louder, swaying as if in grief, and the canopy above her shivered. A light mist began to fall, not rain but something finer like powdered milk or sifted bone. It clung to her skin, sweet and cold. She tried to sleep sitting up, eyes wide open, but exhaustion stole moments. She'd blink and the world would shift, branches where there were none, eyes opening in the bark, a shadow standing over her, mouth stitched shut. She jolted awake every few minutes, heart stuttering. At one point she saw the bundle had rolled closer to her. Just inches from her feet. She hadn't touched it. She picked it up carefully, readying the knot that had come loose. The cloth was damp again, and when she pressed her ear to it, out of dread, not hope, she thought she heard the faint echo of breath. A rhythm, slow and steady. She slung it back across her shoulders. And kept walking. As she moved deeper into the forest, the humming faded. The trees grew still once more. But now, every time she passed beneath a bowed branch, she felt it caress her shoulder like a mother might, a gesture both loving and full of sorrow. She understood then. This place remembered grief. And now it remembered her. She didn't belong here. Neither did Amma. And yet, the forest was watching. Waiting. She didn't know what for. But she couldn't stop now. The forest had thinned just enough for light to leak through in strips, painting the path ahead in trembling gold. Sua's legs trembled with each step, and her breath fogged slightly in the morning air, though the sun had risen. She had not slept. Not truly. The humming had stopped, but her thoughts hadn't. The bundle on her back, Amma, had grown heavier, almost shifting with her every step. She felt the warmth of it seeping into her spine like a second heartbeat. She had begun to murmur to herself just to stay anchored. The trees didn't whisper today, but they watched. Always they watched. Then she smelled smoke. It was faint but unmistakable, the dry bite of burning wood, the scent of warmth. Her stomach ached with sudden hunger, sharper than anything she had felt in days. Her feet moved quicker without her permission, like an animal sniffing toward safety, or a trap. Up ahead, seated beside a small flame in a hollowed ring of earth, was a man. He was old, she thought, but not frail. Skin dark and stretched taut over his bones. His hair was bound in coils that fell down his back like tree roots. He wore a woven wrap the color of iron, and beside him lay a small sack and a gourd of water. But his face, his eyes, they were not missing, not gouged, not even hidden. They simply weren't there. Where his eyes should have been was skin, smooth, uninterrupted, as if he'd never needed them to see. Still, he turned when she approached precisely and said, "You walk loudly for someone who fears being followed." Sua stopped, startled. Her hand twitched toward the bundle on her back. I didn't mean to disturb you." "You didn't," he said, holding out a piece of flat bread slightly charred. "But she did." He nodded at the bundle. Sua didn't move. Her stomach twisted, not just with hunger now but with wariness. She's my sister." "No," he said calmly. "She was." Sua's grip tightened on the straps of her wrap. The man took a bite of his bread, chewed slowly. "You carry not the dead," he said, voice low like ash stirring in a pot. "But what the dead left behind." "What does that mean?" she asked. "She's still warm?" "I don't know why, but she is." "She is not returning," the man said. "But something else follows in her skin. A remainder. A hunger." Sua's lips trembled. "I would never leave her." "I didn't say you should," he replied, reaching into his pouch. From it he pulled a thin charm, a carved piece of bone strung on a black thread. It was small but shaped like a mouth sewn shut. He handed it to her. "When the voice speaks from the back," he said quietly, "bite your tongue and walk faster." She stared at the charm. "Why?" "Because it will not be your sister speaking. And if you answer, it will know your name." Sua reached out, her fingers brushing his as she took it. The bone felt cool but not cold. It was smooth as river stone and faintly warm at its center. She slipped it around her neck and tucked it into her tunic. The man stirred the fire with a long stick, and the flames flared momentarily. "You'll reach the cliff by dusk," he said. "If you do not stray." She hesitated. "Who are you?" He smiled, not cruelly but not kindly either. "The one who did not bite his tongue," he said. Then he turned back to the fire, silent. Sua stood there for a long moment, unsure whether to thank him or run. The flames crackled and the scent of burning root filled the air. Finally she turned and walked away. Behind her, the man did not move, but his fire whispered, and the path ahead seemed to pulse beneath her steps. She walked faster. By noon she no longer felt the warmth of the bread in her belly. Hunger returned like a dull blade, slow, persistent. But she clutched the bone charm often, fingers seeking it beneath her tunic. Each time her hand grazed it, a thin hum brushed her ears, not a sound, more a vibration in her jaw. And then, as the sun dropped behind the trees, a voice came from behind her. "Sua." It was soft. Sua's breath caught. It was her sister's voice. Warm. Familiar. Gentle. "Sua, it's cold, don't leave me." Her eyes filled with tears. Her feet stopped. She reached for the charm. Then please, turn around. But the charm burned now, hot against her chest. She bit her tongue. Art. Her mouth filled with the sharp copper taste of blood. The voice behind her sighed. Then it laughed. Oh, not a child's laugh. Not Amma's. But older. Hungrier. Sua began to walk again. Faster. Faster. The voice did not call again. When she finally broke from the edge of the forest and saw the sun dying red across the ridge of cliffs far ahead, her legs buckled. But the bone charm was still there. Still warm. Still humming. At first it sounded like the wind had changed direction. A low moan rolled across the cliff path, echoing along the jagged stones. Sua stirred from the shallow half-sleep she had managed, curled in a dip between rocks with the bundle of her sister's wrapped body still pressed against her spine. She had not slept truly in days, not since the stranger with no eyes had given her the bone charm and told her to bite her tongue. Her jaw ached from clenching. Her tongue had healed mostly. But now, just before dawn, the air itself felt wrong, too thick, too still. She sat up. Then the voice came. Sua. A soft whisper. Not like before. Not disembodied, not far away. This one came from behind her ear. From the bundle. Sua froze. She felt her bones throb, her breath stop. The name echoed again, in a voice layered like silk over gravel. Sua. She turned her head slightly. The bundle on her back shifted. Not dramatically, not jarringly, just enough to feel alive. Her heart stuttered. She dared not move, but tears spilled down her cheeks in silence. I'm cold, the voice murmured. It's so dark in here. Sua's throat closed. Her hands trembled. She wanted to run, to scream, to tear the bundle off and cast it into the rising sun, but her arms stayed locked. Because even though the voice was wrong, even though the tone curled like old breath through dead leaves, it still sounded a little like Amma. And she could not let her go. I didn't leave you, Sua whispered to no one. I never left you. The voice chuckled softly. That's why I stayed. Sua clenched her teeth, trying to drown out the sound. She stood, her knees shaking, the horizon before her turning pink and gold. The cliffs were closer now. The final resting place. The high place where the dead were released, not buried but given back to the sky. She had followed the path faithfully, through cursed woods and windless plains. Her sister's weight, though strange, had never been dropped. But now, as the wind blew back the veil of morning mist, the bundle pulsed. I remember more now, it said, its voice childlike and ancient in the same breath. I remember fire. Screaming. My name. Your name. Sua took a step forward. Her legs buckled. She fell to her knees, gasping. She reached for the bone charm again. It was cool now. No longer humming. No longer warm. She felt alone. A deep laugh echoed from behind her. Not from the trees. From the wrap on her back. I'm not alone anymore, the voice said. You carried me too well. Sua pushed herself upright. Her chest ached. Her body screamed with hunger. The sun was climbing. Her eyes blurred with salt. She kept walking. By midday, she had reached a plateau of smooth stone. Wind cut across it like a blade. In the center was a tall, leaning totem, the old signal of transition, where the dead were released from memory. Around it, the cliffs dropped into mist. Sua stopped and slid the bundle from her back. It landed gently. She did not unwrap it. Her hands hovered. I'm here, she said, her voice breaking. The wind gusted. The wrapped body shifted. Sua turned away. She couldn't look. Not yet. She stared at the sun instead, felt its heat. Behind her, something began to laugh. A soft, gurgling laugh, like a child playing in mud. She squeezed her eyes shut. Her mouth trembled. You can't carry me any further, the voice said. I know, Sua whispered. But you also can't put me down, it added gently. I know. Her voice cracked. She sank to her knees beside the body. Her fingers fumbled in her bag and pulled out a small piece of white stone she had picked up from the ash path. Her hands, blistered, bruised, held it carefully. And then, with the last bit of charcoal from her fire bundle, she wrote, Sua. Her own name. Over and over again. Sua. 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 Asterisk asterisk. The marks were jagged, imperfect. But each one reminded her, I am still here. I remember your name too, the voice whispered behind her. But it's mine now. Sua shook her head. She wrote her name again. Sua. The body behind her laughed again. This time it wasn't playful. It was delighted. Sua picked up the stone and clutched it to her chest. I'm not dead, she said. You can't have it. The wind died. Then slowly a rustling sound came, the wrapping on the body unfurling on its own. Sua didn't look. She wouldn't. I'm not dead, she repeated. The totem creaked. And then, for the first time, the voice from the bundle said something new. Then let me die. Sua's eyes widened. Silence followed. No laughter. No breath. No movement. The sun crowned above the totem, casting a perfect shadow. For the first time in days the body felt still. Not just quiet, still. As if it had finally stopped, waiting. Sua stood. Her limbs burned, but she moved with purpose. She lifted the body, lighter now, and carried it to the edge of the cliff. No birds flew. No spirits whispered. She placed it gently on the rocks. "I'll never forget you," she said. The wind picked up the ends of the wrapping and carried them like ribbons across the sky. The body didn't move again. Not once. Sua placed the stone with her name beside the totem. And walked away. Behind her, the laughter did not follow. The village appeared like a mirage between two cliffs, veiled by steam and humming silence. Sua stumbled into it with her feet numb and her arms aching. Her sister's weight now strangely lighter, as though Amma had become wind rather than flesh. She blinked slowly, unsure whether she was still dreaming, or if the river had carried her into death instead of away from it. There were no doors. Every home was open. Stone arches stood where entrances should be, but no curtains, no planks, no beads shielded what lay inside. People moved silently within, barefooted and soft-eyed. They did not seem surprised by her arrival. In fact, as soon as they saw her, they began to bow. Not to her. To the bundle on her back. One woman with white-painted hands whispered, "She returned." Another man, face lined with age, pressed his palm to his own chest and murmured, "The tide obeys her now." Sua stood frozen, sweat drying on her brow, dust cracked across her skin. "What village is this?" No one answered. A child came forward and offered her a bowl of something warm and bitter-smelling. Another pointed toward a rounded hut near the far edge of the village. "You may rest there," he said softly, "but do not close your eyes too long." Sua nodded faintly. She didn't ask questions. Something in her had quieted. She walked past the arch into the home, finding a mat of soft leaves and a basin of water already waiting. She lay her sister's body down beside her, gently, as if this place had been prepared long before her arrival. The night crept in soundlessly, no wind, no owls, not even the trees creaked. And then she dreamed. She dreamed she was no longer walking forward, but being carried. She dreamed her arms were limp and swaying, her cheek pressed to a warm back, her mouth sealed shut. She dreamed Amma's footsteps echoed through stone corridors. The village had changed. The arches became mouths, the homes pulsed like lungs. She was tied to her sister's back, swaddled like a babe, silent like a ghost. She wanted to scream, but she had no voice. Amma's voice rang instead, soft and rhythmic. "She carried me. Now I carry her." Sua felt the rhythm of feet and breath, the same tempo she'd kept for days, now mirrored back to her, reversed. She tried to move, to twist her neck, to see her sister's face. But there was no face. Just darkness and heat. Just the beating of two hearts, one hers, one not. She woke with a gasp. Morning light filtered in through the open arch. She was drenched in sweat, her legs cramped and tangled in the mat. The village outside was quiet, not empty, not bustling. Simply waiting. She turned. Amma's body was still beside her. But her face was tilted toward Sua now, as if it had been looking at her all night. The eyes were closed. The smile was faint. Sua sat up slowly, fingers trembling. She whispered, "I carried you. You carried me." Outside, a bell chimed, from nowhere, struck by no hand. Sua did not run. She rose, gathered her things and lifted Amma one final time. Her body no longer felt like a burden. Just a memory. And memories, Sua now understood, walk with you forever, even in villages with no doors, even in dreams that do not end. At sunrise, the village with no doors seemed to hold its breath. Mist curled through the arches like silk, and the wind carried the scent of river water and old fire. Sua rose with the hush, her bones aching but steadier than the day before. She expected the stillness beside her, the quiet weight of Amma's body unmoving. But Amma was sitting upright. Not slowly. Not groggily. Just, already sitting, staring at the wall with eyes wide and glassy. Sua's heart stumbled. "Amma?" she whispered, her throat dry. The girl turned her head, her movements too smooth. Her eyes did not blink. Her mouth opened slightly, not in greeting, not in recognition, but as if relearning how to breathe. Then, without warning, she reached for the wooden bowl by the mat, scooped a handful of mushy grain into her mouth, and swallowed it whole. No chewing. No blinking. No acknowledgement. Sua crawled back a little. Her fingers scraped the mat. "Amma, it's me. It's Sua." Amma's head tilted slowly, as though the name stirred something half-forgotten. Her lips trembled. She reached out a hand, but it hovered just inches from Sua's chest. Her fingers twitched, then dropped. And then, softly, the girl said, "I remember dying." Sua's breath caught in her throat. Amma's voice wasn't a child's anymore. It was hollow, deepened, like echoes in a cavern. It was cold. It was so cold. But now it's warm. I can smell things. I can feel the food. But it's not me. Sua's stomach turned. What do you mean? Amma smiled faintly, too faintly. Someone else is breathing. I just ride along. The village was silent outside. Too silent. No birds. No footsteps. Sua thought of the charm the eyeless man had given her, still hidden in her satchel. You carry not the dead, he'd said, but what the dead left behind. Sua reached forward slowly. Amma, are you in there? I don't want to die again, Amma whispered. Please. Don't finish the path. Don't take me to the cliffs. Sua's hands trembled. Amma, whatever you are now, it's not safe. You're not, you don't blink. You don't chew. Your voice, your breath, it doesn't belong to you. Amma's mouth curled in sadness. I know. Sua's eyes filled with tears. The high cliffs were still days away. And every day she waited, the thing inside her sister grew stronger. More settled. The body beside her had lived once. Had died. But now it breathed again, not with memory, not with blood, but with something colder. Hungrier. You want to go home? Sua asked softly. Amma nodded. You want to be buried where mother lies? Another nod. Sua closed her eyes. She remembered the journey here, the villagers who turned away, the whispers, the night the body had laughed in sleep. Could she bring this thing home? Would Amma truly rest? Or would she bring something else into the village? She stood. Her knees cracked. Her throat burned. The charm in her bag pulsed faintly. Maybe the choice wasn't hers anymore. But then Amma whispered, I'm scared. The voice shook this time. Fragile. A child's voice. Amma's voice. That was what broke Sua. She took her sister's hand, which was colder than it should have been. We'll go home, she said. One way or another. Outside, the village of arches watched her leave without a word. No one bowed this time. No one whispered. Just wind and dust and the sound of two pairs of footsteps. One heavier, one too light for the weight it carried. The path ahead was long. But Sua no longer feared the end. Only what she might have to do when she got there. The path up the cliffs was jagged with broken stone and silence. No birds flew here. No wind sang. Only the sky churned above, thick with waiting storm, as if even the clouds feared what would come next. Sua's back ached under the weight of her sister's body, wrapped tightly in the same cloth they had used on the first day. But now the weight felt different, heavier not in flesh but in sorrow. The body breathed sometimes. Shuddered in her sleep. Hummed low lullabies that their mother used to sing. Sua no longer answered when the voice whispered her name. The cliffs loomed ahead like the edge of the world. Her legs trembled with each step, scraped and bloodied. Her eyes stung from wind and salt. But she didn't stop. This was where the elders had told her to go. Where the dead were meant to be carried if they had died with unrest, with wrongness, with something unfinished. The last steps were nearly vertical, the cliff wall crumbling under her feet. She climbed with her hands, digging into rock and praying under her breath. And when she reached the top, a lonely plateau where the earth ended and the sky began, she fell to her knees. Behind her, the sky cracked open with a thunderclap. Rain did not fall. Lightning did not strike. But the air grew sharp, thick with a pressure that made her ears ring. Sua unwrapped the bundle on her back and laid her sister on the stone. Amma's eyes were open, not glassy now, not distant, but full and shining with tears. No more, Sua whispered, voice shaking. This is where I leave you. This is where you rest. Amma reached for her hand. Not like before, not smooth or soulless, but clumsy, trembling, afraid. I don't want to go, Amma said, voice small. Please. Please, Sua. It was her. It was her voice. Sua shook her head, tears falling fast now. You died, Amma. You died. And something else climbed back into your skin. I know, Amma cried. But I'm still here too. Somewhere. Don't let the wind take me. Not yet. The sky roared again. The wind circled them, pulling at the cloth, the hair, the breath. Sua stood, arms spread as if to offer her sister to the storm, and the storm waited. Waiting for her to let go. Amma sat up. And wept. Real tears. Her hands gripped Sua's ankle. Not with unnatural strength. Not with eerie stillness. But like a frightened girl clinging to the only thing she had left. Sua looked into her face, into the sorrow there, into the part of her sister that had not yet been swallowed. And in that moment she could not do it. She could not give Amma to the wind. Not while even one piece of her remained. She bent down, pressed her forehead to Amma's and said nothing. Just cried. Then as the thunder cracked again she stood, and lifted her sister onto her back once more. They climbed down in silence. By the time they reached the bottom, the sky had cleared. The wind had stilled. But the village would not take them back. So Sua built a hut by the river, far from the others. And each day, Amma helped her grind millet, carry water, clean the mat. Her eyes never quite returned to normal. Her voice sometimes echoed strangely. And at night, she hummed lullabies that only the dead should remember. But Sua never called her Amma again. She gave her another name. A quiet one. A name that meant second light in the old tongue. And whenever people passed their hut they bowed slightly, not in fear but in respect. Because Sua had once carried death up the mountain. And carried something else back down.